All right, welcome everyone. Everyone in this room knows who I am. I'm Claudia Hamel. And this is day 4 out of 8 days of our Cabaret Connexion. I wanted to say the reason why I organized these roundtable discussions, they are very near and dear to my heart, and I hope they become part of an ongoing conversation that the cabaret community deserves to have. We haven't, we're all so very busy in our careers. We're working on our shows, we're working with our coaches and our directors and our pianists, and we're trying to find a place to do it, and we're trying to find a way to do it. And we haven't really very often had the occasion to come together and say, how does this happen? Why is this happening? Why is it this difficult? What are the obstacles? How is it that we might create more opportunities? How would we do that? We're just the performers. We don't own the sites. We don't own the venues. We don't own the clubs. We don't own the theaters. Very few of us do. And yet, we're beholden to a whole other layer of economy that controls whether we're going to be able to work in this profession or not. So I wanted to start today with the economics of cabaret from the perspective of those people who either own or rent out or create festivals or somehow make things happen and engage us as the performers to bring the magic. So it's a partnership, but we know that our economic partners are sometimes very stretched as well. We'll continue this discussion on Friday with a look from our perspective, the business of cabaret, from the perspective of how do you create your career and how do you put your act together in the sense of how do you engage with the public and how do you engage with the venue owners and the festival directors. And then on Saturday, the discussion will be about the future of cabarets. And I'm very glad that Hilary Feldman is going to talk about the business of cabaret because she does a whole course on it and she's fabulous at it. And she'll give you checklists of what to do as you're preparing your show, whether you're doing your first one or you're doing your 20th. On Saturday, Karen Kohler is coming in from New York. Paul L. Martin will have arrived from London. And I've asked them to speak from their perspectives about the future of cabaret. And of course, these are round tables. So everyone's going to have something to say. And you will have something to say. It's your métier, it's your career, it's your passion. So we want to make sure that everybody is involved. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce to you the person who will moderate us. And I'm really happy that this is happening because I have wanted for a long time to involve the Department of Cultural Affairs for the City of Chicago in some way or other with this process. This is part of what we're fighting for, is for cabaret to be on that schedule along with jazz and blues and theater and dance. So John Rich is here from the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events.
It's a real privilege to have been invited to participate, so thank you, Claudia. I know that a lot of work goes into organizing even these kinds of convenings, as well as the hard work of putting together any production. Cabaret certainly has its challenges, so we'll talk about those today. The Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events here in Chicago, for those of you who know, we do a wide variety of activities throughout the city. We put on a lot of festivals in the summer. My particular role, I'm very new with the department. I've only been there for just over a month, but I'm the dance and theater coordinator. And what that means for me in the city of Chicago and for the artists and art makers in the city is that DCASE's has a history of being a presenter in the city of dance and theater, but actually we're moving more and more towards being a sector builder for dance and theater. So my role is really about strategy and also trying to figure out ways to implement those strategies to elevate all of the dance and theater forms. So with that, it's very exciting to be here very early in my tenure at DK's and talking to all of you and bringing this panel on the economics of cabaret. So thank you very much. I'm so new with the city that I don't have business cards, but we'll figure out a way for you to ever reach out to me if you need to. I would be happy to continue talking with all of you. Claudia has done a fantastic job of putting together a panel for a conversation. And I think that there are, these kinds of conversations can sometimes feel very one-directional, but the whole focus of the roundtable is to be a conversation that supports you and your work. So please share your voices and your questions. The format will essentially be I will do a short introduction of everyone, and everyone will speak for just maybe 5 minutes on their kind of position on the economics of cabaret. I may have a couple of questions to start us off, or if anyone has a burning question, we can just begin that very open conversation. Does that sound good? Mm-hmm. Great. While I might be the newest person in the room, I look forward to chatting with all of you perhaps afterwards too. So I know that maybe there'll be a little bit of time for that. Immediately to my left is our translator, Susan. Hello, Susan.
I hope my voice won't go out all by you. So.
We have a microphone.
Okay. Well, I don't want to use it. I'm really happy to be here, and I echo what you said about Claudia being extraordinary with the organization and her contacts and just never giving up. She's just has 28-hour days, and I'm so honored.
Thank you, Susan. I will break the microphone ice so that the next person who uses it is not the first person who uses it.
Thanks.
And then we have with us from Nice, France, Françoise Miron, who is a producer of many events in France and will be speaking through a translator. So her questions will be given in French or English, and we'll have translation, and there may be some folks who are using simultaneous translation in the room as well. And then, Kyle, forgive me, I didn't ask how to pronounce your last name. Let me give it my best shot. Kyle Husted?
Close. Husted.
Husted, thank you very much. Kyle's originally from Chicago and is still has a project in Chicago, but also has a project in St. Louis. In St. Louis, he's the owner of a cabaret venue called the Monocle. And so he can speak a little bit about that, but also in Chicago he has a production company where he works with clients, working with about 60 artists annually. It's called the Cabaret Project, which perhaps maybe some of you are familiar with, but this is clients will come to the Cabaret Project and artists will go out to a variety of venues in different formats. Thanks for being here, Conrad. And then at the end, Jim Dolan, also coincidentally perhaps from St. Louis. Jim runs the Gaslight Cabaret Festival, which is happening right now. We're very lucky to have him here. He has to leave tomorrow to go back to St. Louis to participate in this 6-week festival that happens at the Gaslight Theater every fall, 5 or 6 weeks depending on the year and the circumstances. And so that particular theater is a small venue, 100 seats. And so one of my first questions for everybody is, as they're talking about the economics of cabaret, is to create a framework so we understand the spaces that they might work in and the dynamics of those sizes, because I know that size can sometimes be an important factor. So with that, perhaps actually we can start at the far end with Jim, and feel free to talk for about 5 minutes from your own perspective on the economics of cabaret.
I produce the Gaslight Cabaret Festival every fall, and I produce other things during the year at different venues. I don't own the Gaslight Theater. I rent the Gaslight Theater for the period of time that I need it in the fall, and I bring in lighting equipment and hire technical services, sound and lights services, other services needed to put on the shows. I find the singers and hire the singers and performers, sell the tickets, and after it's all over, I take out the trash. The glamorous life of the producer. There's two ways, as you all know, there essentially, and maybe there's more than this, but what I know is that there's two ways of producing in the world. One is for profit, and one is not for profit. I am a nominally for-profit producer, which means that sometimes I make a little money and sometimes I don't. So so beyond that, the economics of cabaret, I think, are the economics of any kind of performing arts. You find people that you want to put on, and they do their shows, and you sell tickets, and you hope that you sell more dollars in tickets than you owe the performer at the end of the night, and you hope you sell some beer and wine and food. And that's how it goes. So that's my first 5 minutes. We'll talk about the other stuff in a minute.
Thank you, Jim.
Well, that was a quick 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, some of you know me as Kylie Bear, local cabaret producer here. I produce a lot of different styles of nightlife entertainment. I'm of the mind that it's not just a singer's art. There's a lot of different things that fall under the umbrella of cabaret. And as a producer and a venue owner, I have two perspectives on the economics of cabaret. And my most recent one was a show last night where my overhead, or the amount of money that I had to spend to create an artistic environment for an evening in a nightclub, did not meet my gross sales. So I operated at a loss last night, which happens. And I tallied forth because what we need to do is we need to keep creating opportunities for artists. That's the core of my business model. Pardon? And build audiences. It's the core of my business model is to create opportunities for artists. And much like Jim, I am nominally for profit, which means that mostly I don't make a profit yet. But I've found over the years that diversifying my portfolio of artists, diversifying the types of products that I put out there to clients, making myself available in a myriad of genres has increased my bottom line and has increased revenue year over year. So I'm on to something. And a few years back, I had an opportunity to get invested in a venue in St. Louis, Missouri, and I had written a business model that I've been sitting on since I founded the Cabaret Project 10 years ago. And so in 2015, a gentleman called me up and said, "Hey, I'm sitting in a bar in St. Louis. I think it fits your business model. Do you want to come down and see it?" The rest is history. We started off on the business together, and we originally had 5 partners that were together in the business. And now we only have 2, myself and my primary investor. And I like it that way because he leans on me and I get to make decisions. And so finally, there were too many cooks in the kitchen in the beginning, and now it's starting to cinch up a little bit. I think that being a venue owner, I'm only 3 years in, so it's very different on that side of the fence. But being that I have been on both sides of the fence, it's easy for me to relate to everyone that's involved in the endeavor. A venue has far more expenses than you ever thought there were. It's not as simple as, oh, well, you own the place and you're profiting off of the drink sales, but there's an economy there that has to be met. There's also an overhead that has to be met. And every show that I produce, has a break-even point. And every day I try to get both my productions and my bar at least at a break-even point. And the amount of losses versus the amount of surplus that I have pretty much come to the middle. And I thought for a long time that, having the bar component in my portfolio was going to be that's where the money was, that's where the nut is. And I'm not saying that it's not there. I'm saying that the size of venue, it definitely affects the economics of the situation that you're in. The Monocle is a 55-seat cabaret room. It is a small room, and it feels very, very, very full at 55 seats. Now, Jim and I have a long relationship because when I first went to St. Louis to start this project, he was one of the first phone calls I made. Because everybody said, well, you have to talk to Jim Dolan. Jim's the man, Jim's the man. And he helped me navigate the first year that I was in this venue and doing things, and we collaborated for a long time on that, and I'll be eternally grateful to this man for getting me through what was probably the hardest time of my life. Jim's productions saved my bar. So I have a very fond spot in my heart for this man. So our sister city relationship is pretty strong between Chicago and St. Louis. It was coincidental that I ended up in St. Louis, and it's coincidental that we're sitting next to each other today, but great minds think alike, and our cities aren't that far apart. So the things you have to pay attention to and the economics of all of it, and the thing that I'm always cognizant of is, especially as an entertainer, is I always go back to the bar manager and I ask how the bar did. And now that I do own a bar, most of the venue managers will share with me what my numbers were for the bar. And I think that it behooves the artists to understand that it's not just about the ticket sales, but it's also about the bar sales. And bar owners appreciate when you care enough to push drinks and look out for their interests. And it's a surefire way to get yourself invited back to a room very, very quickly. So I'll leave off with that, and we'll pass it along to my French counterpart here.
I don't speak English, and Suzanne is here to translate. Moi, je ne peux vous parler que de ce qui se passe en France, et c'est quand même un peu différent. Mais le problème, c'est que le mot cabaret, en France, il a évolué. Maintenant, quand on parle de cabaret, c'est plutôt les music-halls que les cabarets. Parce que les vrais cabarets, on n'appelle plus ça cabaret. C'est ou des cafés-concerts, ou des théâtres, carrément, mais que j'estime en fait être cabaret par rapport à leur programmation. Donc je laisse Suzanne déjà traduire ça.
Ça a changé quand la nomination?
Il y a déjà au moins une trentaine d'années.
So in France, she's finding that it's very different because the term itself, cabaret, is in the last 30 years it's really changed, and it's not like an American cabaret that you were talking about or that all of us love to go to. Instead, it's a place that has evolved, and so that is the biggest challenge. It's not a café concert, which I don't think that we have here in the States, a place with the can-can and other dancers. If you go to the Art Institute, you'll see the Toulouse-Lautrec drawings, and that is not what we have here in America. So that's one of the things that strikes Françoise.
Mais il existe quand même encore, bon, ça ne s'appelle pas cabaret, mais qui ont exactement les fonctions du cabaret, la taille du cabaret, c'est-à-dire pas très grand, et dans lequel on peut aussi boire. Je suis d'accord, il faut penser à ça pour avoir une rentabilité du cabaret. Mais c'est très mélangé. Moi, par exemple, c'est un peu différent. J'ai une petite salle, j'estime que c'est un cabaret, mais on ne va pas vous dire que j'ai un cabaret, pas du tout. C'est une salle qui appartient à la municipalité. C'est pour ça que ça m'intéresse de voir que la municipalité, ici, s'intéresse aussi au cabaret. Mais c'est une salle qui ne fonctionnait pas beaucoup, et j'ai demandé à pouvoir l'utiliser. Donc, je l'utilise. On y fait aussi de temps en temps des boissons. Mais en vérité, pour que ce soit justifié, on fait aussi une œuvre sociale. C'est-à-dire qu'il y a des classes de chant, des masterclass pour les enfants des quartiers difficiles.
So, Françoise, first of all, I was very happy to see that the city of Chicago is here, because the project that she's working on in Nice is actually, she is setting up what we might call a cabaret, small venue for people to sing and entertain. But the major part that matters a lot to her is that indeed in Nice, which is on the Riviera in France, right near Italy, she says that they are renting the space from the municipality. And so it's a give and take, and it's a win-win situation that she is seeking to have. And by doing that, not only is she bringing musicians to perform in that space that belongs to the city, but they are doing what we would call like a community service type of act, or their goal is in community service. For example, bringing children who are in underserved, underprivileged areas to come and learn to sing and learn to dance, so that they are not isolated from the showbiz, in quotes, and that's my word, but in terms of the fact that the municipality is engaged, she is engaged, the families of these children are engaged, and the city, the inhabitants of the city of Nice and the environs know that this is really, really happening. It's funny how English has so many words and French is so precise.
Sinon, ce sont surtout des cafés-concerts où il y a plus des groupes de musique que des chanteurs isolés. Et il y a très peu de lieux comme le mien qui font passer des chanteurs. C'est plutôt des groupes de musique et plutôt restaurants et boissons et la musique très accessoire. Pas comme dans le cabaret où quand même la musique était très très importante. Moi, ma salle, elle a 100 places, donc ça permet quand même de faire des choses intéressantes, mais ce n'est pas du tout le fonctionnement des cafés-concerts. Et donc le vrai cabaret, il en reste très très peu. Il y en a encore peut-être dans une ville comme Nice, qui est quand même une très grande ville, il doit y en avoir 4 ou 5 maximum. Et même à Paris, il n'y en a plus énormément, des vrais cabarets. Après c'est music hall, café-concert, mais le vrai cabaret, il reste à recréer. Voilà, mais on le fait, mais c'est le mot qui n'a plus la même signification. Voilà, c'est pour ça que c'est un peu difficile. J'ai entendu, on a discuté de cela depuis le début de la manifestation organisée par Claudia, mais c'est vrai que c'est le mot cabaret en France qui a complètement évolué, et c'est difficile. Maintenant, si vous dites, je fais, par exemple, si on voulait faire un festival de cabaret comme Monsieur à Saint-Louis, voilà.
Got it. So, several different things. First of all, Françoise's venue seats 100 people. And so she went in a few different directions. And so the main gist is that since the beginning of this wonderful experience, and really going beyond last Saturday when everybody arrived, people are still questioning what is a cabaret. And what is it for us in Chicago? What is it in Paris? There are very few in Paris. There are 2 or 3 in Nice. And if you say to someone, what is a cabaret? If you ask 10 people, you'll have 10 different interpretations or nuances. And that is a problem. That's a challenge. So fighting for the survival or the creation of new cabarets makes it much more difficult. On the other hand, in France, that's what the music halls and the cabarets and show places were a part of people's real daily lives. And so we can't just say, well, that's done. And so the challenge is, well, what and how do we, and who gets to define what cabaret is now? And we don't know.
Je ne veux pas vous parler pendant des heures, parce qu'il y a d'autres personnes qui ont des choses à dire. Mais c'est ce que je voulais quand même exprimer par rapport à ce qui se passe en France, parce que j'espère qu'il y aura une suite. Là, ce qu'a fait Claudia, moi je suis prête à le faire à Nice aussi. Mais déjà pour vous indiquer ce qui se passe réellement, le vrai cabaret, il y en a par exemple l'année dernière qui avait ouvert, il a tenu 1 an. 1 an, voilà. Et
last year, there was, she's hoping that next time that the cabaret project, Cabaret Connexion, will go to Nice as well, but the discussion must continue because last year in Nice, 1 cabaret opened, and it lasted 1 year. So the fragility is real, and that's why it's important for us to work together here.
Voilà, et je pense que monsieur, excuse-moi, a bien dit, il faut quand même penser à la rentabilité du cabaret à travers les boissons, la nourriture. En fait, en France, c'est un petit peu pareil. Il faut donc vraiment des gens qui sont en même temps gestionnaires, de très bons gestionnaires à ce niveau-là. Parce que sinon, bon, ça ne marche pas. Donc je crois qu'on est d'accord là-dessus.
And she's saying that just as Kyle said, that it's important for whoever runs a cabaret to be sensitive to the sales of drinks and of food in the venue, and that money needs to come in, and that the owner of the cabaret, or the renter in this case, needs to pay real attention to that and be really right with and backing up the efforts of the barman, because that is no different in France, and that's often what makes a place go.
Voilà, ben maintenant, je ne sais pas s'il y a d'autres personnes qui veulent poser des questions ou dire quelque chose.
Do you have questions
about that or in general?
Questions in general or about that specifically?
Yeah. When Francoise said that the cabaret was used to be part of the fabric of the community, can she elaborate? What does she mean? You know,
Did everybody hear the question?
Yes.
like who is it? The whole community? Is it some of the community? Is it the people who are adults in the community? Is it workers? Is it middle class people? Who in the old cabaret? How was the cabaret part of the fabric of the community?
Le cabaret, au départ, était un mélange, justement, de toutes les styles de société, de cabaret aux gens riches. Ensuite, c'est devenu trop cher pour les ouvriers, donc c'était réservé après aux riches. Et maintenant, ce qui reste du cabaret, en fait, ce sont les jeunes. C'est pour ça que ce ne sont plus tellement des chanteurs comme nous les voyons, comme nous avons vu tous les chanteurs intéressants ici, et plutôt des groupes de musique. Parce que maintenant, le public est très jeune dans ce qui reste du cabaret. Le cabaret, comme je l'ai connu moi, par exemple, maintenant n'existe plus. Mais à l'époque, c'était une promotion pour le chanteur. Il passait du cabaret aux grandes salles. Du cabaret à l'Olympia, par exemple, à Paris, c'était normal. Maintenant, ça n'existe plus. Maintenant, c'est les médias, télévision, même par radio, qui amènent aux grandes salles. Ce ne sont plus les cabarets.
So in the past, workers, to answer Kathy's question, workers could come to a cabaret, and then the prices rose so fast and so high that it became prohibitive for just regular folks, in quotes, to listen to music in a cabaret, and so it became a place just for the wealthy. And when you have just the wealthy, then you're no longer representing the community, that fabric of the community that you were talking about. And it's really important. So the cabaret of the past really doesn't exist anymore for people who were the top singers that we all knew, maybe in those years of the Jacques Brel or Edith Piaf or the top singers. And so what has happened now is that we have music halls and big theaters. Somebody is going to, like Branford Marsalis is going to be tomorrow night, Friday night at Orchestra Hall. Well, his grandpa began in little cabarets down in New Orleans, in the Bayou, and he had not a penny to his name, but he played a wicked piano, and he still is. So that's kind of, we have a similar thing going on here in the United States, but the change is that it's the young people going to these venues, and the young people who are producing and who are recording and who are YouTubing. And so it's a huge, huge change in very few years from what was a cabaret singer, in quotes, and a cabaret venue to what's going on now. You've got to make it big, and you really need big bucks to do that.
She also said that it's bands that are playing, it's not individual singers anymore.
Right.
That's huge.
That it's bands that are playing and not an individual. That's true. Thanks. Yes?
Jim,
Mort,
Jim has a response as well.
Well, I can see that.
Thanks, Misty.
I mean, I'm focused on 100-seat places or 50-seat places in college.
Jim,
Hello?
that
Yeah,
mic
sorry.
is directional.
Oh, sorry, thank you very much. So I'm you know, that's where I work. That's 90% of where I work. Sometimes I work bigger than that, but that's 90% of what I do. So the focus, I think, how are we going to make 100 seats work, right? 120 seats work? And how does cabaret fit into the modern era now? So so at the Gaslight Cabaret Festival, we bring people in from out of town to do shows, but we also hire local singers, right, in St. Louis that do shows. And I think that's an important way to people who know each other in the community come to the shows. So, and it also builds the form. You know, if our local singers have a place to play and sing, it builds a form. The other thing that we do that's a little different is that I'm dedicated to what I call a genre-independent form of cabaret. So it doesn't matter the genre of music that you can be. I mean, the meat and potatoes that we know of cabaret is the Great American Songbook, right? Around here from the 20s to the 60s. But we do all sorts of music. I mean, tomorrow night we're doing a Joe Cocker cabaret. Last year we did a Janis Joplin cabaret. 3 or 4 years ago we did a cabaret in blue, we call it, which is we brought the local, our local form, our native form is the blues in St. Louis. And we have a lot of very fine blues singers in St. Louis. So I made them tone it down. No amplification and stand-up bass and do it the old way. And we did 4 nights of a cabaret in blue. It was a big success. But mostly, I mean, a little bit, but mostly acoustic. So I mean, I guess that people have to I mean, it has to sell, I guess is one way to say it, as Kyle made that point, right? What you do has to be interesting enough. So it has to renew itself, right? It has to become new again and young again. We can't. I don't think we can just focus on older. However great it is, and however much I like it, which I love it. That's how I got involved in it. But we have to update too. We have to bring in newer forms of music, not newer forms of music, but other forms of music, and younger folks who relate to newer forms of music.
I'd like to ask a question of the whole panel as well, kind of along this thread. Everybody has identified the risk involved in producing cabaret. Geographic differences notwithstanding, size of the room notwithstanding. I think that also all of us in the room understand that risk is a reality. I'm wondering what kinds of opportunities you've also found in the work that you've done. Maybe it's risk-based, but maybe a risk in terms of new revenue generation, or perhaps, in particular, as Jim was suggesting, shifting content, doing a different kind of curatorial focus, or even a risk in developing new audience. Has there been any opportunities that you've also taken a risk on and they've paid off in a way that you may not have expected, or they met your goals?
Sure. So, as I said earlier, my portfolio is more on the diverse side, and as an entertainer, I diversify myself to have more broad marketability. And it's that we have to reinvent or represent in a different way. And a way that I have circumvented that as a professional is that not only do I perform as a cabaret artist, but I also MC as a burlesque host. At Christmas time, I produce Dickensian Christmas carolers for the Drake and the Peninsula and several other places in town. So as the year end, in some of our resort towns that I work with, Lake Geneva, I produce a lot of murder mystery shows, but I incorporate music into those. So what I've done is I find a market need, someone who wants to buy a product, and I make that happen. Now, as far as like addressing the younger issue, or the younger topic, my newest product on the market, and it is proving to be the most successful product that we've ever created at the Cabaret Project, is the feathered bows.
Is what?
It's called the feathered bows.
Feathered.
Bows, B-E-A-U-S, bows.
Les beaux.
Les beaux.
Les beaux en plume.
So, the Feathered Bows is a male vocal group. It's 3 singers and a pianist. And 50% of the repertoire that Feathered Bows presents is pop music from the top 40 charts. It's arranged to have harmony. I have several arrangers that work with us to create these tunes. And what we're finding is that if people know a song and they can sing along to it, then you're winning an audience. Now, if you're doing music that no one's ever heard before, that's a different style of cabaret. That's part of a museum art form now. And if people can't relate to it, or if they're not in the game of wanting to be educated by you, they just want to be entertained by this, I'm finding that there's far more success if they know the song. So 50% of our repertoire is pop music from the top 40 charts up to date. And 50% of it is whatever the hell else you want to sing. So.
Is that a cappella or
It is company.
live or tape?
Good question. It is
What's the question?
live or to a track. And we have a live pianist, but we also have been incorporating track backings to amplify the presentations. Yeah. Yes, for other instrumentation. The keys are always live, but we'll add percussion, we'll add guitar, we'll add things like that to amplify the performance. There's a lot of videos online of our show from last night, on my Facebook in particular, but if some of you want to see a riveting rendition of Creep, I showed it to Jim just before this, because I couldn't even believe how good it sounded. Damn, that sounds good. But you can see what I'm talking about if I can show you that clip. It's in a few seconds. Question?
Yeah, you mentioned Lake Geneva. Have you tried some of the small inns, like for example the French Country Inn?
I've not. I work exclusively with one because it is such a small resort town.
This one's on Lake Como, not on Lake.
Yeah.
Baker House.
But yeah, because it is such a small resort town, I have a relationship with Baker House and Maxwell Mansion, which are sister properties.
Okay.
So Baker House is actually for sale. I don't know if you're in the market and want to buy a place, but Baker House is going on the auction block this month, but Maxwell Mansion is continuing. So I haven't really sought other opportunities in Lake Geneva because it's a nice thing for our company to have a relationship with that company, but I also have relationships a lot of other places that I'm not Lake Geneva focused, so I have a lot of other places that I'm keeping tabs of right now, so I'm spread a little thin, but I'm always looking for opportunities.
Yeah, a new owner just took over that French Country Inn, and I think it would be a great spot for a cabaret. They had a 3-piece band just playing pop music, but they would have been perfect for cabaret.
Let me come to you in just a moment, and I'll check to see if Françoise has a response to
Non, je voulais seulement dire que effectivement, on fait beaucoup de spectacles variés et surtout ce qui marche très très bien, ce sont les musiques du monde. Comme je suis très spécialisée en musique du monde, en particulier Brésil et Cuba, dans lesquels j'ai beaucoup voyagé et j'ai fait venir énormément de groupes, c'est vrai que maintenant, c'est pour ça que je disais que le cabaret a évolué dans le sens que le mot cabaret en France n'était pas associé à ce genre de musique. Mais maintenant, c'est ce qui fonctionne. Donc moi, je passe certainement plus encore de musique du monde que de chansons. Vraiment, même si j'adore la chanson, mais ce sont les musiques du monde qui attirent beaucoup plus la clientèle. D'abord parce qu'il y a justement des gens aussi de tous les pays. Moi, je suis, que ce soit à Paris ou que ce soit sur la Côte d'Azur, c'est très mélangé. Et ce sont vraiment les spectacles de musique du monde qui fonctionnent le plus. Ça, c'est certain. Donc, je suis tout à fait d'accord avec la diversité des spectacles qu'il faut proposer dans le cabaret.
So what she said is that what is really important and what's really working in France now is not just under the wording of cabaret, but world musics. Because in France there's so much diversity like there is here in the United States, that's really, really great. And in her experience of what she sings and the types of musicians that she brings to the different projects in Nice are people who sing from other countries around the world, and especially for dear to her heart, where she has traveled and performed a lot is Brazil and is Cuba as well. So this is something, and it makes me think of tonight we're here at Old Town School of Foot Music because it's the International Wednesdays, and so we're right where we need to be.
So the issue of economic survival in small art venues with limited potential growth is not just limited to cabaret, it's also a common problem for small musicals and the producers of small musicals in New York. I myself come from a background, have been both a cabaret writer-singer and an actor-singer, and I was the first executive director of Steppenwolf Theater in the basement of the Immaculate Conception School in Highland Park, so I have experience running a little theater trying to money. And I've recently been involved in discussions in New York where I also spend time with off-Broadway theater owners who have said, don't even try to make money off-Broadway anymore, just look at it as a loss leader to brand your show and move it into licensing around the country because it's so expensive. But the discussion has also led to the future of theater, and I believe the future of cabaret is in the interface we can create with other media that will give it broader exposure. The internet, particularly. How you promote yourself on YouTube, whether you can get strength in numbers by combining venues in some kind of conglomerate and selling a circuit, perhaps. So my question to you is, as theater owners, what have you done looking into interfacing your theaters with other forms of promotion over electronic media and digital age? And where do you see the future for your own clubs that way?
So we're all familiar with Facebook, I presume. And some of us think that Facebook is a really good marketing tool. Facebook was, at one time, a very good marketing tool. It is no longer a very good marketing tool. There are many, many algorithms in place that actually block you from getting your feed out there to people unless you pay to do that.
Right.
So you have to boost your ads and build that into your budget as part of your marketing. The best thing that you can do is cross-promote, 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 cross-promote. And you must cross-promote as a human being, going to other people's shows, performing at them for free, and being sure that you can tag on to their social media at the end. Take a picture with them, mention them in your feed, make sure that you are connecting the dots, because then your pool, their fans, they all start to connect, and you must use Instagram to do this. So what?
Oh, no, never mind.
Why Instagram?
Instagram is owned by Facebook, and Instagram integrates with Facebook, but Instagram is designed to be a marketing tool. And in today's market, in today's world, the general advertising budgets that an advertising firm or a product puts out there now spends nearly 40% of what they're utilizing their budget for on what is called an influencer. An influencer is somebody who has acquired a lot of followers on Instagram. And these people have influence over other people. They have followers that see what they do, that pay attention to the products that they promote. You know, if I said, oh my God, I really love Kylie Bear, oh, I'm gonna follow you on Instagram. And if all of a sudden I'm like, guys, this eye cream works so well. And if I have 30,000 followers and all of a sudden this eye cream jumps in sales, you know, because of that, like a bunch of people buy this eye cream, pretty soon that company's gonna call me and say, hey, we also have this product. do you think you could mention this as well? Or like that you're gonna be, and they start to utilize that as a tool, but it's becoming more personal, but it's becoming more personal on a cyber level. So you just have to keep up with the Joneses on that.
I have a question. I know a lot of the people in the room are very interested in putting shows together, I think all of you. And so I was wondering if you could talk about, maybe each of you, like what you'd be looking for in a show and how people would present a show for you to look at. Do you have a form? Do you look for a certain length? Do you look for an intermission? Do you look for a certain number of people? Or variety, you talk about the 7 o'clock show, the 9 o'clock show, the 11 o'clock show. So each of your own things that you look for, what you think makes a good show to help guide all of us as we think about putting our shows together. Because I know a lot of people in the room do that. Or the logistics of it.
We look for good ideas from people to, I mean, we go after people who already have shows. People who we don't know, when we're putting shows together, we look for good ideas. We look for ideas that are a little different. Well, we guess that yes, selling tickets is good. Yeah, it's good. Selling drinks is good. But good ideas, like I just spoke about the Joe Cocker. You all don't, most of you don't do Joe Cocker, but it was a good idea.
So I guess my question specifically is like, how would somebody approach you and say, I have this show and we would...
Sure, yeah, I'm available I'm on Facebook. You can message me and the Gaslight Cabaret Festival. We can talk for sure, yeah, see what's going on, yeah, what are you doing? Absolutely.
Do people, how do people pay to be at your festival? How does your festival work?
We pay all of our singers. We guarantee all of our singers a minimum fee, and then if they sell more tickets, they make more. And some we just, that's more, it has to do with the local people, but out-of-town people we pay negotiating fees.
I guess there's a couple different things that I'm looking for when I'm looking for talent or looking for a show or looking at a person that wants to put on a show. I set expectations that if it's in my venue that I need them to promote themselves and I need them to fill that theater. First and foremost, as a venue owner, that's my main primary concern. And I'm not necessarily concerned about, as a venue owner, I'm not concerned about how talented or how polished the product is that's going on that stage. If I have a hole in my schedule and somebody can fill 50 seats in my venue with drinking people, then I'm happy to do that. If it's 4 o'clock on Sunday and you think you have 50 people that are going to spend $600, $700, $800 at my bar, I will open it happily. So that's the economics of it. If you can sell for me, then I will put you on a stage. There's a separate component to that. When I'm looking to hire artists to push out to other clients on my brand's behalf, on my entertainment brand's behalf, I'm looking for a very polished product. I'm looking for a very put together show. I'm looking for someone who sparkles. I'm looking for someone who has their brand figured out as a person, as an entertainer, as an artist, and something that I can sell, easy, a packaged product. I'm looking for someone that has their costume figured out, their banter figured out, and what it is they're selling. So if you are a 60s pop singer and you've got the whole shtick going on, I can go after client X when they come to me and they say, we want to do an Ed Sullivan show. I say, great, I've got somebody who sings Piggy songs, shit like that.
Do you have, do you know for the shows in your model room, do you have any kind of promotion of your own? Do you have a mailing list or a newsletter?
Mm-hmm. Yep, I have all that.
Some support, but you
yeah,
people to deliver.
Definitely. I support as much as I can with what's going on. but I can't push out any one individual artist unless it's something that I'm producing and I'm spending a lot of money to bring someone there, someone who has a lot of name recognition. Then I will promote that brand or that name to excel my brand. If you're an unknown artist, if you're or a local artist or somebody that's on the smaller circuit scale, your information will be pushed out along with everybody else's information that is presenting that same week. On Monday we get this, Tuesday we get this, Wednesday, you know. But I do give preferential treatment to larger names because those names help solidify my brand.
We'll hear a response from Françoise and then open up to another question.
Non, je voudrais parler d'une action économique, puisqu'on parle de l'économie du cabaret, qui est très intéressante. Quand j'organise un concert, on propose aux gens aussi une rencontre exceptionnelle avec les artistes autour d'un verre, qui se monnaie évidemment à un certain prix, et qui est limité, parce que bon, la loge elle est grande, mais enfin, ma salle elle fait 100 places, on peut prendre 150 personnes à cette rencontre. Et ça marche très très fort. Voilà, c'est une petite idée économique à rajouter pour le cabaret, parce que les gens ont toujours envie de rencontrer les artistes, de leur poser certaines questions après le concert. Et si en plus ils peuvent boire avec eux, ça se vend très bien.
So, a very special thing that Françoise loves to do is invite her clientele to pay a little extra or a lot extra to be able to have a glass of wine, say limited to the first 20 people, to have a glass of wine in the little room after the show, and to be able to spend intimate time talking to the artists that they came to see, and that this works on every single moment. Everybody wants to do that, and then of course they go and tell everybody, oh, you should have been there because you missed out, or oh, you were number 21, too bad, go next time and put your name on the list. So that works really a lot. It brings in extra money. It allows you to be with the artist, and the artist is going to sell him or herself again to you.
The VIP ticket.
I 100% agree with that. 100%. The people want to feel special, and the VIP tickets for almost all of my shows sell out before the general admission ever does, and they don't get a lot more for it. They get to be in the first 3 rows. That's it. I put their name on a seat. That's all they get. I did find when I began my brand as a marketing stunt, I said I found a PR person that I could afford, and I said, okay, here's what I want. I want to be in this magazine, and I want to be on that television show, and I want to have this. I have these 3 goals for this brand to get out there. And she said, okay, what do you have cooking? And I said, go with me. I want to take mansions, flip them into cabarets for a night, and host an underground soiree. And she goes, I love it. I can sell this. And I said, okay. I didn't make a nickel on it. Not one nickel. And I did 2 years of them. I did 6 of them in total. I found people that would give me their mansions. And these are like legit mansions, multi-million-dollar properties, and sell a bunch of strangers tickets into these houses. Because the first 2 people, I knew the first 2 people would let me do it. I had a relationship with them, and they said, oh yeah, we can do that for you. We can let you do this. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing. And it was underground, it was completely secret. It made people like crazy that they didn't know where it was gonna be or what they were even going to. It was called the Underground Soiree Series, right? So I would go in there, I took all the chairs, I made all the food myself. I catered the bar myself. I've been a bartender for years. I learned the bar business from the back end, because I was like, okay, I need to get behind the bar if I'm gonna own a bar one day. So I started educating myself immediately. So I did that all myself. I carried all the chairs in, I brought in all the lights, I did everything. I moved out all the furniture, I cleaned up after myself. I didn't make a single nickel on the thing, but I was in Chicago Social. That was the first goal. I wanted to be in Chicago Social. And I was able to market to people who were affluent immediately. And then they were like, okay, they're watching. So then the next one, I announced the next Roy series. No one knew where it was going to be. So it's exclusivity that sells as well. No one knew where it was going to be. And I don't tell them where it's going to be until noon the day of the show. Noon. The show's at 7. They don't know where they're going. So the only thing they know is that it's in a neighborhood. They know the neighborhood it's going to be in. This is the South Loop one. This is the Hyde Park one. This is the Lincoln Park one. And they're just like, where in Lincoln Park could it be? They drive themselves crazy thinking about it. So it was $125 a ticket is what I was able to charge for that. And I still didn't make money on it.
How could you not have? I don't get that.
Yeah, how many people attended?
Oh my gosh, 50. Between the advertising, the PR person, the talent, the food, the bar, the linens, the glassware, it adds up. Believe me, it adds up. It adds up really fast. But what I got was a name. I got the name, and that's what I was aiming for. So yeah, exclusivity, definitely 100%.
Oui, ça se fait aussi dans le sud de la France. Nous avons fait ça aussi du côté de Saint-Tropez et de Monaco.
So on the French Riviera near Saint-Tropez and Monaco, people do that too, where they will rent a place that's super, super chic. And so when are we going?
Take a question here, and then Michelle.
I know this is my particular genre, but I'm just curious from all three of your point of view. Does Broadway still sell as a brand for your clubs? I'd be curious in France. Does Broadway sell through cabaret as a brand? Are people interested in that? Does that make it easier to sell? Does it make it harder? Does it depend on the artist?
It depends on the artist, and Broadway still sells. It still sells, but you're targeting a market. You have a very specific demographic that you're going for. You're going for a bunch of gay men, and you get your ass out there. You get to every gay open mic that you can find, and you sing that song that you sing really, really well. But yeah, Broadway still does sell. The recognition of Broadway still sells, but younger audiences don't necessarily consume it as much as they should. Or the things that they do consume are like, they know Wicked, they know Hamilton, they know things like that, but you get the pre-2000, they have no idea. Pre-2000, they have no clue what shows were out there, what these songs are from. I never heard that before. That's from a musical called Cabaret. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
So that's why the peppering in of the pop music. We do 50% pop music, and the other 50% is about balance between jazz, Broadway, and blues, or whatever other genre we choose. But yeah, it still sells.
Well, I think Kyle said this, but I find Broadway sells better with Broadway stars, like Vive Prince, or we had Alice Ripley last year. We've been experimenting more with bringing more well-known Broadway people in to do shows, and that's worked out pretty well.
Well, yeah, there's a brand recognition there. I mean, when you're a career Broadway artist, it's not something that we don't get a lot of those here in the Midwest. And so as producers in the Midwest, it's like there are some people around here that have some notoriety and some names, and they do very well periodically. But if we can bring in somebody who has a Tony, bring in somebody and we can flaunt that, that itself helps us with our brand. It helps my room have notoriety. It helps all of that grow. And then that helps all the smaller people that I helped beneath me. So that helps me foster people as well,
Chain reaction.
It's a chain reaction. And in that particular instance, not that I believe in trickle-down effect, in the political sense or in the socioeconomic sense, but in that particular sort of thing, it helps. It completely helps. Like, yeah, we're gonna curl this around. Yeah, it does help.
Have you ever been able to get...
I'm sorry, we'll come to your question in a moment. I want to catch this question.
Well, my question actually sort of piggybacks on what you asked before and relates to what Faith asked, which is if you all three could relate maybe just examples of shows in the past, say, 3-4 years, that in terms of genres of shows. I mean, you know, some people have a theme show based on a songbook. Some people have a show, you know, the songs of Joe Cocker, or, you know, because you were talking about creating ideas for shows. What have been the shows, and maybe some of them have surprised you, like a show that you said, oh, this sounds, I'm going to book this. This seems like a commercial idea, and maybe it wasn't, or vice versa. You took a risk on something, thinking, well, I like this person, I owe them something, but it doesn't sound so commercial, and people flock. But are there shows that you find tend to, like, you already know, like, if I do this kind of a show, it's probably going to sell. If I do this kind of, I'm not so interested in this person's approaching me, they want to do this kind of show, and I'm probably going to discourage them because, well, we did 2 or 3 shows sort of that sound sort of like that, and they didn't do well. Do you have anything along those lines that you could guide people and say, if you're putting your energies, creative energy into a show, you might not want to put your energies into this kind of thing, it's not so popular right now, this seems to be trending, or this seems to be, I mean, you sort of touched on it already to some extent.
Yeah, I do. I have ones that I've seen that pop and that help artists pop. And 2 words for you, sir: Cole Porter. Like, yay! Cole Porter sells. I don't care who you are. You know, but you have to get into the music. You have to understand the nuance of it. You have to get the joke. You can't just, because if you put up a Cole Porter show and you do it poorly, then you won't have another one.
Now that's a surprise to me, because I would think when you talk about your younger demographic, how are they relating to Cole Porter?
Sure. No, and that's definitely not a younger demographic set. That's definitely not the younger demographic set.
It's your older money crowd.
Yeah. But if you're looking for that answer, you just want to draw an audience, that's an easy sell. Cole Porter. That's my influence.
Well, what's in New York, there's a room that just opened a year ago, and Mark Nadler was the man who opened it, and he opened it with a Cole Porter series for that reason, because he thought it would sell.
What's the name of it?
To the Upper East Side people, and that they launched that. So that's on it.
exactly the way I did it.
I really wanted to hear from France, though, how France feels about American cabaret Broadway. Would an American cabaret coming to France be a seller?
How do we bridge that gap?
Yeah. Maybe it doesn't interest you.
Est-ce que ça se vend, Broadway?
Maintenant, c'est assez difficile. Ça n'existe que justement plutôt dans du musical. Moi, je vois par exemple la ville de Nice où il y a beaucoup de touristes. Bon, il y a 2 salles qui sont en général avec des casinos où on joue, où il y a des revues là, de Broadway qui peuvent marcher. Voilà, ce sont les seuls endroits où ça peut encore passer.
So in these, where there's casinos, those rooms have showrooms, and that kind of a venue, it would work.
Because of the
tourists, and because of the kind of people, and they know that music.
But the French people themselves, the community is not interested.
No, French people wouldn't just go looking for it.
In general, in Europe and outside of the States, Hollywood, they know more, because movies are more international. So a musical like Cabaret, which is a big movie, or Chicago, which was a movie, those people they will know, but just someone who's just done Broadway exclusively, less known. Some years ago, I was in Lisbon, Portugal with Leroy Reams and Pamela Myers. They decided they would do an all Jerry Herman evening. The only song that people knew in a 2-act evening was Hello Dolly. And afterward, we went out to dinner, and our guide, our translator, was taking us to a restaurant. There was a puddle in the street because it's been raining. Leroy went over to the puddle and started doing a little Gene Kelly, and the Portuguese guy went, singing in the rain. And it was like a V8 book that we should have done Hollywood musicals. Because this guy who's singing in the rain. Hollywood.
Well, you know, we toured in Australia a couple of times, and I thought, oh, I'm gonna have to lay this out for people. It's like we were rock stars. They knew everything. So I'm always just fascinated who picks up on that genre and who doesn't.
Were you doing?
And I would love to be friends because I'd like to go there.
Australia. Were you doing movie music material in that tour, or was it theater music?
It was theater, just my normal act. But they knew everything about me before I said it. Yeah, I mean, it was gobsmacking.
The French probably know they use that
But they were they had done their research. I just don't know how to say it. It was amazing. So I'm always at different places have different thoughts.
So
Yeah.
So commercially, in France, what would people see? What would they like to see in a cabaret? What is the material?
C'est vrai que je pense qu'un tour de chant les plus grands succès des comédies musicales, monsieur, je ne sais pas qui, a raison, on connaît mieux le cinéma en fait, et donc toutes les comédies musicales qui ont été connues à travers le cinéma, tout le monde connaît les chansons. Donc je pense qu'un tour de chant, par exemple, de quelqu'un qui ferait toutes les grandes chansons de Broadway, ça c'est possible. Mais il ne faut pas que ce soit, en fait, quand même des spectacles trop chers, pas un spectacle pas très important, mais des chansons de Broadway extraits du cinéma. Voilà, je pense. Il faut voir ça comme ça. Moi, j'engagerais ce genre de choses, mais sinon, c'est difficile.
So, if you're organizing a production in theaters in France, and you want to use Broadway songs, it needs to be, like you said, sir, that songs that people know from films, that then people will know because they will have seen the film. That's your access.
Thank you. I'll get to this. I'll get to your question first, and then come around here. But one thing I've heard a lot of is we've talked a little bit about audience, but it's always about a segmented audience. That it's a Cole Porter audience, or it's a pop song audience. And I'm wondering what experience you're having as venues and presenters where you're seeing audiences mix. You're seeing different demographics. We keep talking about this demographic or that demographic, but what's happening to make demographics come together in an exciting show?
So, you know, essentially, that's...
I would think Pink Martini is one of those groups. Pink
Yeah.
Martini, I've seen 80-year-olds and 8-year-olds.
I think that's a really
example.
postmodern jukebox.
Martini, that's a group.
Yeah, things like that.
Portland, Oregon.
Pop music into it.
An old style.
With movement.
Yeah. It's a little bit of the gimmick that we're using now at the Cabaret Project as well. The underlying theme here is songs they know. You have to know your audience. You have to sing songs they know. You have to sing songs the younger audience knows. You have to sing songs that the older audience will know. You know, so what audience are you walking into? What room do you want to play? Where do you want to go with your act? And then go from there. You know, it's just songs they know. That's how you're gonna get popular.
No, just a moment.
You had a question?
Well, I'm not sure how much it relates to what we're saying, but the Moulin Rouge, is that just mostly for tourists?
Yes.
Oui, pour les touristes ou alors certains Français qui vont fêter, je sais pas, les 80 ans. Ou...
Or for somebody's 80th birthday or something special, and then the family all get together, yeah.
Les touristes, mais des touristes français hein, aussi, parce que c'est les touristes de province qui vont à Paris, qui vont au Moulin Rouge.
People from the,
Ce ne sont pas que les étrangers.
it's people from outside of Paris, from other provinces in France, will go because it is.
I want to go to the back of the room and then to this gentleman here.
I just wanted to say I was in Paris just a couple months ago, and there's a guy that has a show at Théâtre Nouveauté it's called How to Become a Parisian in an Hour.
Oh, I saw
He's an American who, a French guy who came to America, spent a few years, got his English pretty much up. 8 years ago, he put his idea out there, didn't get hired. And now he's been doing that show every single night for 8 years, and he's got 2 more years of a contract at Théâtre Nouveauté. Not one song, but he makes fun of Parisians in a very, amusing way, and half the audience is Parisian. That's what's funny. Yes, it's half tourists, and he picks on the different tourists, but it's mostly taking the mickey of Parisians themselves. It's a comedy, and it's pretty funny. It's only an hour long. You're spending a regular price ticket for just an hour show, but he's been able to do it for 8 years straight, which is, it's a miracle. It's basically a miracle.
So is there music or is it just comedy?
No, it's just comedy, but the point is, it's got longevity.
Yeah.
It's like a flute. The point is, I guess, that it's a flute.
It's a phenomenon.
Yeah.
But it's a
I'm sorry, just one quick comment. Françoise said that theater is a whole different functioning. So you know your script in the theater, whereas the intimacy of cabaret, you're eye to eye with the people that are.
Well, this guy interacts with the audience constantly. That's very funny. That's what makes it so funny.
Kyle has put a finger on a problem, an issue for which there is no particular solution, which is both our audience is fragmented between the young and the old, not just in terms of music, but the people who perform the music. We have a room full here of over 40 people who are trying to hang on to the beauty of music that's over 80 years old and saying, how do we get a new audience with it? This is
and would like to make a little
difficult.
money.
I'm curious if in France they have the same problem. Is there an equivalent of a great French songbook, the Aznavour de Piaf, that the young people are also no longer interested in, and is that part of the problem with French cabaret? Is there a generation of younger singers?
Est-ce que Aznavour et Piaf sont passés?
Sont passés où?
C'est-à-dire, est-ce qu'ils sont...
Ah, c'est passé. Ils sont passés, alors. Mais on a l'équivalent de Piaf ou Aznavour. Ce sont d'autres personnes et qui ont beaucoup de succès aussi. Ce sont d'autres, évidemment. Mais ça existe toujours. Mais justement, plus dans les cabarets. Le problème, c'est qu'auparavant, c'était le premier lieu pour qu'un chanteur ait du succès, passer par le cabaret. Maintenant, il passe par des émissions de télévision. Voilà, donc c'est pour ça que le cabaret a perdu cette fonction de promotion dans la carrière d'un chanteur. Auparavant, en France, en tous les cas, c'était comme ça. Tous les grands, Brel, Brassens, Barbara, Aznavour, Bécaud, sont tous passés par le cabaret. Et ils passaient du cabaret à l'Olympia, et après une carrière parfois internationale. Maintenant, les cabarets n'ont plus cette fonction. Maintenant, c'est la télévision qui fait des émissions, mais ça ne dure pas autant, mais il n'y a plus cette fonction de promotion du cabaret. C'est déjà c'est la chose la plus différente. Voilà, ça c'est fini. Mais je pense que peut-être le cabaret, effectivement, doit aussi se poser des questions sur sa programmation. Il faut peut-être vraiment diversifier, je pense, beaucoup plus que ce qu'on faisait auparavant. C'est une question, hein. Je n'ai pas la réponse exacte.
So in the past, all the big singers started in a cabaret. That is where everybody, that was their goal, that was where they had to start singing, and then they would go into the bigger theaters and the bigger halls. Now that doesn't exist at all. People, when they're starting their career in France, they're found by a promoter, by an agent, and they are put on TV. And then from TV, they might, if they're really, really successful and excellent, then they'll go to a real big, fancy, in quotes, theater. But it's that purpose that cabaret has served in the past just isn't there now at all. So it's a question of reinventing or saying, you know, what is or can be or should be a cabaret.
But has the change in musical taste, does she think that's part of the impact on the decline of cabaret venues in general?
Non, je ne pense pas que ce soit le changement de goût. Je pense que c'est le changement de fonctionnement de l'industrie musicale. C'est tout. Et des médias. Et l'importance des médias maintenant qui est plus importante que la qualité artistique. C'est ça.
So she's saying, no, it's really not that. It's the media that has the big power, and whether someone's a good artist or not sometimes seems secondary. Yeah, it's just the evolution of that cabarets don't have that role now. The people aren't asking for it at a cabaret, and the cabaret isn't saying, you know, here we are, we're going to fulfill everything that you want. Good question. Claudia?
I'm curious to think about this younger generation question, to understand why there's a younger audience for burlesque here in Chicago. The 20s and 30 somethings, what it is about the burlesque. Yeah, but you know, sex is easy these days, right? I mean, you hook up with a stranger. So it's not sex in that sense. So what is it about burlesque today that's different? Because in the old days, to show an ankle was one thing, right? So what function and why is that attracting a younger audience? And maybe, I know Kyle just did a whole burlesque workshop for us, but it seems to me maybe we need to do some more burlesque.
Well, I love that you brought that up, Claudia. Thank you for acknowledging that. The reason that I brought multiple disciplines under my umbrella at the Cabaret Project, as far as the definition of cabaret was concerned, is because yes, younger audiences, there is a resurgence in burlesque in particular, and I don't know if it's because younger audiences are necessarily interested in it. They didn't know what it was, but the thing that burlesque artists are very, very, very good at is promoting each other. And they work as a team very, very, very diligently to promote one another. They each have a very distinct brand. They hire each other to do things. They help promote each other. They bring one another to different cities. They all help each other. And that culture isn't something that's thriving in cabaret. That style of culture, that cross-promotional, that relational thing isn't necessarily thriving here. If I was going to put, and so it's been interesting, and it's something that I've been trying to put my finger on as well and learn from, and is why my brand hits a little close to the burlesque side of the fence right now, because I saw a market there, but none of the burlesque people were doing, vocal, but they have room in their show for 1 or 2 or 3 acts of a vocal thing that they put in their burlesque lineup. A burlesque artist just does their 1 act and they get off until act 2, and they come back and they do their 1 act and they get off. So they come and they do 2 acts, and that broad marketability that culture that they've seeded is woven between. It starts with all these different friend networks coming together and friends being friends to this thing. So these guys don't put up a whole show on their own, but they perfect 2 short acts that they sew together with another group of people that they put on a show, and a variety. Yeah, and they're able to hone their skills very, very, very diligently within these acts they do, and that's why their nuance is so spot on. That's why
vaudeville started.
Yeah, it's exactly how Bill started. And so, but now they've created a network of people, city to city, and now they're traveling around. And now they have a lot of festivals going on that they host. And Lola Vanella, who was in St. Louis but just moved to New Orleans, taught me a lot about that. She's been a self-made burlesque entrepreneur for a long time. She'd been at Studios, which was a teaching facility. She produced a lot of small burlesque variety things, and then she does like blowout stuff. She devised the Show Me Burlesque Festival, right? And so she built this festival, and she brought all these artists there. But in creating those relationships, to bring a bunch of artists to play your thing, she created a network of connections where she could go to other cities and play their thing. You know, so you create opportunities for other people, they create opportunities for you, kind of thing.
So Kyle, of the percentage of people you know in that realm of entertainment, what's the percentage of people making their living off that entertainment?
Very small. I can't even do it. I can't even do it yet. I haven't figured it out yet. It's very small, and the people that do it are incredibly diverse and very, very, like I'm almost there. Like I'm at a place, I'm like a breaking point where I almost can't keep up with my day job and all the other shit I have going on. So I'm hitting a tipping point where I'm about to jump off the day job wagon. And I've done that many times in the past. They're all throwaway jobs. I call them muggle jobs. I don't like my muggle jobs, but my muggle jobs provide for me. You know, they give me stability to continue to do the art. You know, so I need that. But the percentage of people that actually can make a living doing the damn thing, oh man, I mean, I bet it's 10%. 10%. I think out of 100 artists that I know, 10 of them are self-sustaining.
Françoise, Jim, do either of you have?
Je disais que ce qui marchait en France, c'est pas le burlesque, mais c'est le one-man show comique. Et là, il y a des grandes vedettes qui remplissent des salles autant que des gens comme Aznavour ou autres. Ça marche très très bien en France, mais c'est pas particulièrement musical, c'est uniquement parlé. Alors là, vous remplissez, ça va des tout petits cabarets aux grandes salles, Olympia, même beaucoup plus grands, Palais des Sports, etc., pour des vedettes comiques, mais essentiellement parlé, très peu musical.
Et est-ce qu'il y a un âge?
Non, alors là, ça touche tous les âges.
Et
le public est de tout âge et tous les sujets.
So what's working really super well all over France in big theaters and little theaters and huge stadiums for people of all ages in the audience are one-man comic. One man or one woman comic without music, or maybe there's a little ditty in the music and all that, and touching on all subjects from politics to people to love to any different subject. And that is not cabaret, but that has tons of success in all sizes of places. How about here? Well, Second City.
One thing I was thinking, piggybacking on what you said, that show has a great title.
Yeah.
And it's something to think about for, a title of a show can keep a show running for years. Nonsense,
Sheer madness.
I love you, you're perfect, now change. I mean, there's shows that have run for years because the title, you don't have to even know it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Naked Boys Dance.
Naked Boys Dance?
Sheer madness ran for years.
We'll have time for maybe one or two more questions, and then we will have to close this. I know that there's a performance tonight, and I know that some of you have had a little bit to eat, but I want to make sure that you have time to eat if you have not eaten. So maybe another burning question. There's in the back.
It's not really a burning question, but in terms of taking chances on new material, I want to ask the producers if, say, 3 or 4 years ago, somebody had come to them and said, I have an idea about a hip-hop musical about one of America's founding fathers. how would you have responded?
It's nice to meet you. That's out of my wheelhouse. Have you met Jim Dolan? No, I consider everybody that comes to the table with an idea. I do. I'm an artist. I'm creative. I'm also an entrepreneur and businessman. So if they come to me with an idea, then I say, okay, all right. Well, come back to me when you've got that ready to go. Let's do this. Or what do you need? Or how can I help you? I want to see people achieve their dreams every single time. If they ask me my opinion, you know, it's like, well, it sounds kind of wacky, but I don't know what you're capable of. You can be anything you want to be, you know? You never know. You never know what somebody's going to do.
Yes, of course.
And you're a theater person.
Yes.
And we held a concert last night that I think of as a fine example of cabaret concert. It's not terribly schmoozy with the audience because of the physical setup. We didn't have tables and drinks and stuff like that. Now I can imagine taking that set and putting it in a place, maybe not quite so deep thrust, put some two tops up, and have a cabaret that felt so embracing. It would be 150 seats. That's a better economic nut to hit for a place that can sustain itself. But I'm wondering about the role that theaters that have buildings can play in sustaining cabaret. In other words, had we thought about it, maybe we should have had a Monday night series over at stage 773 on that stage, because but I know venue is very important. The way people felt in that room was magic. I think the audience just felt totally like comfortable, and that we on the stage, we loved it. We were so close. We were so able to do what we do. So I think my question to the producing end of this is to think about how do we use those kinds of spaces to be in the cabaret rooms that would fit in the 21st century, because maybe the basement of a tavern just isn't going to cut it anymore, economically.
Yeah.
You use the theater.
I use it, yes. I mean, I use the theater. The Gaslight Cabaret Festival is in the theater. So it's a 100-seat theater, and that's what we use. You know, it's if you have to sort of build a brand, right? And the Gaslight Cabaret Festival is that, and that's what Kyle's been talking about. It's hard to, I think it would be difficult, Claudia. Maybe it's easier in Chicago because there's so many more people than in St. Louis, but to kind of do something here and there, it's hard. It's hard to build a brand, right? Either the room has to have the brand, or the performer has to have it, right? And people will take a chance on the room, or the producer has a brand too, right? That's also.
Sometimes a venue has a brand.
Yes, indeed.
Like
yes, indeed.
Joe's Pub.
No, that's what I thought I said that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, right, absolutely.
I didn't make it out there. Didn't Drury Lane Oakbrook have a very successful cabaret series in the last year or so?
Drury Lane over the summer started a cabaret series. And I'm not sure how successful it was. We had some of our acquaintances perform there.
I think they did 3 different shows. It's a little bit hit and miss, and it's also a little bit hit and run. The idea of being able to sustain a relationship with a building, so that you could say, first Monday, stage 773, or second Tuesday. Right?
We should be pursuing that.
So, when the theater's dark, theaters will make a deal.
Well, that creates, when the theater's dark, when the theater's vacant, I mean, the thing that you're discussing is you're discussing filling a void that's inconsistent. So without consistency, your brand building is moot. You basically have to start over again when your night shifts from Monday to Thursday. And it's like, oh no, we're no longer on Mondays. You know, we have to build it into people's routines and rhythms in order to be, there has to be some semblance of consistency.
The one thing that I would add to that as well, prior to my being at DCASE, I was manager for the stage at the Museum of Contemporary Art in Chicago. Prior to that, I was the executive director of a literary presenting organization in town that did not have a physical building. So I've been involved in production for a long time. And while brand I have always recognized as being important and knowing yourself and being authentic, I also find, and it's been mentioned here in a couple different ways, that having meaningful relationships and not simply transactional relationships with a venue is, in my experience, crucial.
Yes.
And what that means is that maybe there's a brand that someone wants to be a part of, but there's not the right fit in terms of a person-to-person relationship. And that's okay, I think, because that's the dynamics of the world. There's not always, you know, everyone you meet on the street is not going to be your best friend. But if one finds a way to have a meaningful, even one email can transform a relationship. If in that email the transaction is mutual, it's not simply about, oh, I understand you have a space, but you have a space and I have something that helps your space live with the mission that your space is trying to sustain. So I think that relationship thing that we've been talking about is actually sometimes overlooked.
I just want to mention, I've done things in the past where people were starting programs that they were trying to make consistent, and sometimes I was the first person on the bill, and it was in a neighborhood like Thousand Oaks in LA that had never done anything like that. They'd never had a Broadway cabaret series. And so the woman, I was literally driving from Northern California down to Southern California, she called me and she said, you may not want to come. I only have, you know, it was a 300-seat house. She had maybe, I don't know, 90 people. And she said, I don't want to put you through that. And I said, are you crazy? I said, have you ever heard the expression, you build it, they will come? I said, those 90 people will go out and give the word of mouth. I said, we have to build this. You just have to be in it for the long run. Yeah. And I did it, and the series took off after that because it grew and grew and grew. So relationships are important. She never forgot that, you know. So,
and with that,
as the artist, I try to be aware of that, to do that for other places. I give too, because it's give and take. It's not a, you know, a lot of times it's not something.
And with your comments about the long haul, I want to thank all of you for participating in a very long haul. Really cool conversation. Thank you, Claudia, for having me be here. I do want to ask one final simple question to the panel, and just pass the microphone along. Perhaps a curious question for a panel on economics, but I want to know what you are still curious about in cabaret. What are you curious about still with cabaret?
Bien, je veux savoir si on est capable de le faire continuer, et je pense qu'on est capable. Et si on s'associe, encore plus.
So she thinks that that we do need to get together, and we all have the same goal or similar goals. And so she suggests and she encourages us to all work together to revive in whatever way that is. Cabaret.
I've always been a big picture thinker, so venue was always right at the top of the list. But I'm curious how well a travel show about cabarets around the world is going to do when I pitch that shit.
I still look to be enchanted and swept away, taken away, taken away. If I'm enchanted, then I figure other people will be enchanted.
If I can have a sort of a last word, because the last few things that were said about transaction versus relationship, there's a certain cultural difference between the French and the Americans as how we approach these two questions. And it was stated to me by a headhunter who does French recruiting of French management level people. He said the French want the relationship first, and then together you can create the project. We Americans, we have an idea, we get a project out, and out of the project, we develop relationships. And it's a curious thing because it works both ways, differently. What we're doing right now is both. We're creating relationships, we're creating a project, it will create new relationships, it will expand the project, and I think that also pertains to, everyone in this room is the result of relationships that I've been building, that each of you has been building, and it's because of that that we could come together and say, all right, what are we going to do next? How are we going to make cabaret take over the world? Here we go. Thank you. Thank you, John, so much for